For no reason whatsoever, I started thinking about real-life people who exist in the world of James Bond. The world of 007. It's a fantastical fantasy world. While it might contain characters that are based on or inspired by real-life people we know, it's its own separate entity. I read once that Cubby Broccoli said that the James Bond movie should take place 5 minutes into the future. Considering that rule, the flicks aren't meant to take place in the world we live in. It can push things a bit, get a bit more exaggerated, unexpected and amazing things could exist, like invisible cars. Outlandish, unbelievable things become more possible. There are plenty of places and things and products that coexist in Bond's world and ours. It's all pretty close and not too far removed from us. But how about some real-life people we know that somehow bleed over into 007's world and make a small connection to ours? I'm not talking about the novels. In those, you can find plenty of real-life folks sprinkled throughout them. Ursula Andress is a real person in those. I'm sticking with the movies. There have been a few lucky folks who have coexisted in both our world and the world of 007. Let's try to sniff some of them out, shall we? By the way, there's probably not going to be any rhyme or reason to this list or the qualifications I make. If this was a really big important deal, maybe I'd make some strident rules, but I'm just going to rationalize these any way I want to at any given moment. Let's get the biggie out of the way. Queen Elizabeth. Bond is working for her. It's kind of funny how some people went ape when they cast Judi Dench as M in 1995, and all this Bond's boss is a woman stuff. His boss has technically been a woman since his creation. Thanks to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, with Bond raising a drink to a painting of her, we know she's around.
Sorry, ma'am.
Her name isn't mentioned, but we can be sure it's Queen Liz.
Queen and country, James.
God save the Queen.
Okay, arguments can be made about this. At the end of 1981's For Your Eyes Only, they call up the Prime Minister and she ends up flirting with a parrot. Although they never say her name, this PM is clearly meant to be the then current PM, Margaret Thatcher. Janet Brown was famous at the time for doing a Thatcher impression, so they got her to do this bit. Then they even threw in a lookalike of her husband, Dennis, as a bonus gag for this final scene. So while PMs have been mentioned throughout the film series, the only real one we know for sure was around in 007's world is the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher. We do spot a photo of Winston Churchill in From Russia with Love, but, maybe we can include him too. Kinda dicey though. Swedish actress, model, and sex symbol Anita Ekberg makes a memorable appearance in From Russia with Love and cements her place in Bond's world. A giant movie poster of her 1963 farce, Call Me Buona, adorns a building that is used as an escape by Krenlenko. He actually uses Anita's mouth as an exit. Then he's shot by Karen Bay. He does one of those old-school screams as he falls. Bond has that cool line,
She should have kept her mouth shut.
This scene plays out in Fleming's novel, but he used the poster for Niagara with Marilyn Monroe as the canvas for this almost escape. I always figured they nixed the idea of using Niagara since it was a 20th Century Fox flick, and this was United Artists. So rather than pay for the use of the image, they went with something easier and cheaper. A movie they already owned, and that also was made by Eon Productions. They managed to get a bit of cross-promotion for themselves with its inclusion. I think we can also go along with Bob Hope is living in Bond's world too. So maybe Bond chills out on weekends and watches some of the old Hope and Crosby road pictures. The 1960s and that big British invasion thing. Well, it must have been happening in 007's reality too. But he wasn't too much of a fan of them as he disses the Beatles.
My dear girl, there are some things that just aren't done. Such as drinking Dom Perignon 53 above a temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's as bad as listening to the Beatles without earmuffs.
At least Paul McCartney didn't hold a grudge since he was willing to sing Live and Let Die down the road. I'm not sure if Roger's Bond was more of a fan of the Beatles than Sean's. Music can get really tricky in Bond's world for this. There's been a lot of classical musical pieces we've heard throughout the film series.
Well, Tosca isn't for everyone.
And by the way, I'm obviously talking about source music, the characters have to be hearing what we are. So while it would be cool to think that Bond knows the theme to Lawrence of Arabia, The Magnificent Seven, or he might listen to the Beach Boys every now and then, those don't count. We're left with some instances of pieces of classical music played we hear as the characters hear them. But can we confirm who the real-life composers are if they're never name-dropped? This could just be a piece of music we know, but in Bond's world, they were created by a fictional person. So, unless we can be sure the composer of the piece that the characters are listening to is the same as the ones we know, they must be disqualified. I told you, I was just going to make the rules up as I go with this. But we do have instances where we can verify the existence of composers and their music exactly as we know it. Moneypenny helps us out by telling us what piece Kara will be playing.
We'll be back at the Academy on Thursday afternoon playing Borodin's String Quartet No. 2 in D.
It matches up, so he exists in Bond's world. Or did exist. At the end of Daylights, Kara plays some Tchaikovsky, yet they don't specifically name him. So maybe it's just some phantom piece of music. No. Thanks to A View to a Kill, we do know Tchaikovsky is a person everyone knows in the 007 universe.
The bubbles tickle my Tchaikovsky.
Thanks to Polly Ivanova's enthusiastic love of Tchaikovsky, I take this vital piece of information, run over to that scene in Daylights, and use it to verify that Kara does indeed later play the Tchaikovsky piece of music we all know. Because these are my rules. Tchaikovsky for everybody. Bond and us. I don't know what to make of this one. There's been a lot of historical figures who get a brief name drop in the series. But let's look at some of the most notable mentions or appearances. Whitaker has his personal pantheon of great commanders. We recognize a lot of them, but no names are given. You can really argue their inclusion on this list either way. We know who they're supposed to be, or rather who Whitaker's fanboy cosplaying statues of who he wishes he was. But I would feel more confident if we got some names to go with them. These could just be fictionalized versions of their real-life counterparts. At the end of Daylights, Whitaker and Bond do confirm that the Battle of Gettysburg took place.
Pickett's charge was up Cemetery Ridge, not Little Round Top.
I'm replaying the battle as I would have fought it. Meade was tenacious, but he was cautious. He missed his chances to crush Lee at Gettysburg.
And they mention General Lee, General Meade, Pickett's charge, so we can confidently add them to the list. The Civil War must be something in the history books that took place in Bond's world and everyone reads about. Scaramanga's Funhouse also has some statues. I'm not sure if this cowboy is meant to be anyone. When I was little, I thought he was supposed to be Roger Moore as a cowboy. He kind of looks like him. But Mark Lawrence, as a gangster, I think he only played gangsters in his career. He encounters an animatronic old-school gangster and calls him Al.
Hey, Al. Al. Whatever you are, don't hold it against me.
Al Capone. Arguments can be made here. But yeah, okay, we'll say yes, Al Capone has lived in Bond's world. This is one of the most disappointing candidates. I would love to say Sinatra exists in Bond's world, but I can't. Let me explain. So in Spectre, Bond is racing around Rome in his new Aston Martin, pushing away at gadget buttons. He hits upon 009's playlist and we hear the opening to New York, New York.
No.
We got a bit of a funny going on here. Everyone who hears that song instantly thinks of Sinatra. It's one of his signature songs. So does this mean through the years Bond has been able to listen to Sinatra albums? I mean, that would be a cool image.
The PTA, Mrs. Robinson, won't okay the way you do your thing. Ding, ding, ding.
Not so fast. In 2015, when Spectre came out, it was also Frank's 100th birthday. So this could have been a courtesy shout-out to the chairman of the board. While I think the filmmaker's intention was to invoke Sinatra with using the song, it doesn't pass my test for one reason. We never hear Frank's voice. And technically, the version they use is not even the Sinatra version. It's some kind of cover version of it. We can say the song exists, but who might be singing it in Bond's world is up for debate. So Sinatra's existence can't be proven. The more I thought about the lack of using Sinatra's version in Spectre, the stranger I thought it was. I don't understand why they wouldn't want to use his rendition for this gag. My only guess is that either they couldn't get the rights to use it, or they just didn't want to pony up the cash for what it would have cost. I mean, they just spent $30 million on this entire car chase in Rome. And then they get tight with their wallet for a song? I mean, that would be strange. I mean, unless the price for using a Sinatra song is really that steep. Speaking of Sinatra, one of his Rat Pack buddies came even closer to actually palling around with 007. Sammy Davis Jr. Davis famously filmed a cameo in Diamonds Are Forever. It appeared he played himself, but in those deleted scenes his name is never mentioned.
Wow. They ain't never gonna get a cake big enough to put him on top of.
It doesn't really matter though. The scenes weren't in the final film, so whether he was meant to be playing himself or not, it's all moot. You can still spot a picture of him as Bond is flipping through a magazine. But again, we can't be sure if he's meant to be Mr. Show Business or just a fictional entertainer who happens to look like the guy we know as Sammy. If we really get crazy, or at least crazier than all this has already been, as Bond is flipping through that mag, we see an ad for none other than Tony Bennett. Yep, that's him. He's right there performing in Vegas while Bond is there. Bond never catches his show, but let's put him on the list of existing in Bond's world. I find it kind of amusing that Shady Tree has as big an advertisement as Tony Bennett does. Shady Tree and his acorns. He must have been a real big draw on the Vegas Strip. It's not just real-life entertainers that Bond can enjoy. He can also enjoy watching the occasional cartoon, too. Spectre might have goofed up with Sinatra, but they clearly confirmed that Bond is well aware of who Mickey Mouse is.
Chi sei?
Sono Topolino. E tu chi saresti?
No, scusa.
I like to think that Mickey is still an innocent, beloved cartoon character in Bond's world, and not just a corporate logo like he is for us now. It's not just Mickey Mouse Bond can enjoy for some entertainment. Thanks to the San Francisco police chief in A View to a Kill, he confirms the existence of another fictional character that folks in the Bond land can enjoy.
Well, actually, Captain, I'm with the British Secret Service. The name is Bond. James Bond.
Is he?
Are you?
Yes.
And I'm Dick Tracy, and you're still under arrest.
I imagine Bond might read the Dick Tracy comic strip while eating his hearty breakfast, or between sips of Heineken. We can definitely confirm that Playboy magazine is popular reading material for Bond. He even is a member of the Playboy Club. Unfortunately, Hugh Hefner never did a cameo or got his name mentioned. So we don't know who is responsible for Playboy magazine in Bond's world. For all we know, Blofeld could be behind it. Bond has to get his news somewhere while he's chugging Heinekens on beaches, and apparently he can get updates about world events from Wolf Blitzer. Okay, so he doesn't identify himself, but we'll let that part slide. We know he's playing himself. We can really start some trouble with this, since establishing Wolf as part of Bond's world. What does his cameo in Mission Impossible Fallout mean? Is it possible that James Bond and Agent Tom Cruise are coexisting in the same world? Is it conceivable they are both breathing the same air? Are they aware of each other? Shocking. Did we just stumble onto a Wolf Blitzer shared universe here? Mind blown. Relax. Good old George Lazenby will put all this anxiety to rest in the opening to Majesties, where he miraculously breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to us.
This never happened to the other fella.
Oh yeah, this is just a movie series. Don't take it all so seriously. I almost forgot that. Thanks, George.
I want to let you folks know you've been a lousy audience. So get lost. See you later.